Hello, on tonight's wrap, we finish off our season previews with Cardiff and Scarlets, i.e., the two best teams. Hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Welsh Rugby Regional Appreciation Podcast, or some those words in some sort of order. I'm your very inept host, Harley, once again, who is dosed up on cough medicine. I am joined by the now regular team of Dan, Hattie, and Nick. How are we all doing, folks?
Evening,
All
everyone.
good, thank you.
Yeah,
Good evening. Yeah.
Right, so shall we get into what we're dubbing as Nick's never-ending news desk? Because as soon as we set an agenda for the news desk, there's another few items. So, Nick, what have you got for us tonight?
Okay, well, I'll start off with coaches. Okay, the WRU and Cardiff have confirmed today that Mark Sherratt will leave the club with immediate effect to join the Wales as senior men's attack coach. Sherratt returned to the Arms Park for a second stint as initially, I think, as backs and attack coach in 2021 and has spent the last two seasons as head coach. However, obviously, everybody knows he led Wales as interim coach in five fixtures this year, and now joined Steve Tandy's backroom staff on a full-time basis. Cardiff announced that the remaining coaching staff, Cornell Van Ziel, the forwards coach, Gethin Jenkins, defence coach, and Johnny Goodrich, skills coach, and Scott Andrews, scrum coach, will continue to lead the Blues and Backs in what is obviously very, very close to the start of the UR season. And they have worked together previously in Sherratt's absence. Obviously, there's been a lot of pushback and comments about the timing of this announcement. But surely for most Welsh fans, and certainly not from what I've heard on podcasts and some from Cardiff fans, this is not a complete surprise. So I'll leave it open for you to comment. Harley, do you want to kick us off?
I said not a surprise, but very disappointing. I said because Cardiff has struggled to have like a head coach for enough seasons to actually make the squad their own, and Jockey's finally done that, shaped the squad, and now he's off. And we're not only losing our head coach, we're losing our attack coach, and the person who's going to be there shaping things day to day, making tweaks as different personnel throughout the season. Joe Goodrich's got to go step up. He is ostensibly an assistant to Jockey in the attack. He's focused more on individual skills as opposed to attacking systems. And it would be nice, if this seemed, it smacked of the W had this plan, but put it off. And same as they were always going to hire. They always seem to want to be hiring Reading. They always wanted to hire Tandy, and it seemed to just delay and delay. We've been waiting for a independent chair at Cardiff that the WRU needed to appoint to start looking for a head coach, which also needs WRU approval. And you're just sort of hoping that they could have just, instead of push everything back, just start that a week or two. Just give us, a couple of weeks, just without this constantly. So it just feels like we've not really been able to settle at any point, and the rug gets pulled up from under us as soon as we stood up again.
My question, if that's okay, before the others come in, is when would have been a good time? I think most people on this podcast and other podcasts from the Rat family have generally agreed that the first step was to appoint a new director of rugby and elite performance, as they called him. Then the next point was to appoint a head of men's coaching team. So for me, there has to be a process. There has to be robust and transparent. And from that, then once the head coach is appointed, then they've gone about appointing the other coaches. I understand that's really shitty for Cardiff, but Mark Sherratt has obviously decided he wanted this role. I assume he's made that clear to Cardiff that he was going for this role. So my challenge back would be to Cardiff. I understand the constraints, but surely there'd be some pre-planning, a contingency solution in the short term, maybe discussed. A succession plan in place. These are all things that most organisations would do. So,
but most
where
organisations aren't running on two board members.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the problem. There is we basically got screwed over from the administration, and we haven't had a chance to sort of fold anything new in. That's my counter to that one.
No, that's fair enough. But obviously, I feel this hasn't just been sprung upon Cardiff. Once Mark Sherratt was appointed as interim coach in the Six Nations, there was always a chance this was going to happen.
Yeah, I would also say I always wonder
with the WRU what the difference is between when we actually find out news sometimes and when it's actually happened behind closed doors. Like looking from the women's side, for example, we as fans kind of knew that Sean Lynn was going to be appointed head coach for like weeks and weeks, weeks and weeks and weeks before it happened. And when the announcement came, it was a very polished announcement. It was very kind of put together. So it was pretty clear that he'd said, I've had conversations with the players and I've done this in his announcement. It was pretty clear he'd been offered the job like a while before. It was just they waited to announce it. So I do wonder, did they wait like because they hadn't press kind of scheduled and therefore this is the date that it was supposed to come out? I don't know. So it does always wonder. They probably knew for a while and they've just announced it at completely the wrong time because they have no sense of what's it.
Yeah, my opinion on it is that all parties would have known that he was going at some point. I would have thought after the Japan tour. And let's be honest, Steve Tandy's name was being bandied around in the press for weeks, if not months, prior to him being officially appointed. So, and I would have thought in and around those conversations with Tandy, they would have been asking who they wanted his backroom staff to be. And Jockey's name would have come up in conversation, and he would have. He's got a good track record. Ultimately, Wales were improved, especially in terms of their attack and the Matt Sherratt. So I think it was a bit of a no-brainer, really, that this was coming. That what I feel sorry for Cardiff is that there's been no succession planning. If you knew this was coming even 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, put like you said, Nick. You knew it was coming. Stick someone in place. Let's get someone in shadowing Jockey. If it was, Gethin Jenkins stepping up or whoever it may be, can we get them coming in and shadowing Jockey? How do we, carry on the team environment, the team ethos, the culture within the environment down at the Arms Park, and all of these little bits and pieces now that ultimately it is left rudderless and will change when a new head coach comes in. So it's almost as if Cardiff are being set up to fail, effectively, in my opinion. I'm not saying necessarily to fail as an organisation, but to certainly fail from an on-field perspective. I think Harley was saying there's only a couple of board members at the moment. Ultimately, they're owned by the union. They haven't signed a PRA, or they have signed a PRA actually, so there should be a bit more money there. But it doesn't look like they've been that. There's been too many signings coming in through the door. I know Harley will get onto that shortly, but it just doesn't seem right to me. It's almost like typical Welsh rugby at the moment. Capital City club is rudderless going into the first game of the season. The timing is absolutely shocking. Even if they knew he was going for this week, we go another, what, 6 weeks before the autumn international squad's probably announced, something along those lines. Try and maybe keep him in place and bring someone in now to work alongside him and do that handover process, then announce that he's going. I don't know, just reeks of amateurism to me.
And it goes back to one of your big complaints last season, Nick, if the plan was always going to be Mark Jones, why didn't they just bite the bullet and give Mark Jones the full pre-season? So now you had to wait a whole year to get that. Now we've got to wait. Now we've got someone supposedly coming in. They might not want to attack like Jock. They might not want to defend, so they might want to change. They want to clear out the whole backing staff, so we don't know.
In the Ospreys' defence, so maybe that was a contractual thing whereby ultimately Toby Booth had a year left remaining on his deal. So if he was determined to see that year out, then they had no option but to do that, especially if they didn't want to pay him severance, which they probably wouldn't have wanted to do until they were forced to. So maybe that's the difference on that point. But you're spot on. Depending on what head coach comes in, and I would have thought they're probably going to promote from within to try and keep it as stable as possible. But ultimately, people will have their own ideas on things. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch the fallout of this, because on Saturday, Jockey ain't in the coach's box.
No. Just to pick up on Harley's point, which I do agree on, is that obviously with all the uncertainty, it now means we've got one coaching position, which is empty, isn't it? So if you're talking about redeployments or something like that, it's you've got and we're going down to 2-3 teams. Well, you've got 3 people with coaches, each with a contract. And we've got one team that doesn't, which we can just move people around.
Yeah, it's definitely something fishy going on with all that.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see the fall of this. But if it was another region, my spidey senses would be tingling the same as Nick's, thinking, yeah, well, you can wind this down now. But the fact is Cardiff, established 2019, then it's it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, because we all know that, and probably quite rightly as well, the capital city should have regional rugby, or professional rugby, should we say,
Yeah.
whatever that's going to look like.
Okay, are you happy? I can go on to some other coaches' news. Toby Booth, the very popular ex-Ospreys and London Irish coach, was announced this week will be joining Harlequins as the forward consultant for the 25-26 season. And another former Cardiff coach, Di Young, has been appointed head of performance at Cardiff Met University. So there are just 2 former coaches who are involved in Welsh Rugby going to be in different roles this season. And that's the news for so far, Harley and friends.
Yeah, we'll be recording another episode later. It'll be in your inboxes probably Wednesday or Thursday. But let's say we'll put all player stuff in when we do our round 1 preview later on. So moving on now, it's time to finish off the team preview. So we expertly covered the Dragons and the Ospreys last week. So now it's turn for Cardiff and Scarlets, who finished 9th and 8th respectively this season. So I'm going to go through the Cardiff thing. A lot of stuff's been talked about because most of our leavers have either gone to the Dragons or the Ospreys. There are a couple of extras. So Rhys Littrick's gone up to Edinburgh. The wonderful, and I cannot explain how wonderful he is and how much I miss him already. Ray Lilo had retired. We also lost Gabe Haber-Webb, who's gone to Leicester. Cody Stone has gone down, left the academy, gone to Merthyr. Gwyn Bradley is sort of been left in the air. I think he's associated with the Ospreys or one of their SRC feeder teams. And then Reagan Grace got released and he's yet to pick up a club, which, I'll be honest, we never saw too much of him, so it wasn't too great. In terms of players coming in, we've actually signed tight heads, which is, that's a repeat. We signed tight heads. The tight heads we signed are Haven Sebastian and Sam Wainwright, and I'll leave a few seconds there for people to just say their own comments about that. Then also from the Dragons, we've signed George Knott and Tane Basham, which actually for me I think is quite nice because they're sort of sitting in that sort of second, third tier of players as I see it. But they're adding more physicality, which is something I think Jockey's really tried to do with his pack, is to make them a bit more physical. As Dan was talking last week, having more people who can make game line. George Knott, very abrasive. He's also a fantastic line-out forward. I think it was really underrated how good he was running in the Dragons line-out for stealing ball. Then we also have Johan Lloyd coming in from Scarlets, who Scarlets fans couldn't wait to get rid of. And this is something that's either going to make or break my opinions of the season. I could see him working very well in match attack, whether it was as a 10 or a 15, and now that's gone to pot, so it doesn't really matter. And then we've signed under-20s lock Tom Cottle from RTC. I imagine he's probably going to spend a lot more time with Rags, being only 18, 19 years old, along with Johan Emanuel and Johan Davis from Bath. Again, I imagine their minutes are going to be more Rags than they are for the senior team. Other than that, pre-season, we absolutely smashed Richmond 71-10. But more impressively, we beat Leinster 31-10. Now, some people might tell you that it was a C team, which it was, but we still beat Leinster in Dublin. So, that's a win. And, considering plenty, you can't have Leinster both being able to beat anyone in the league with this E team and then losing with this E team. So, happy with that. Otherwise, hope for the season. I was hoping that we'd break top 8. I think with Jockey going and then certainty and everything else around Welsh Rugby, it's sort of making me slip down, slipping another pecking order. When we originally was setting up our predictions, I put Cardiff as ninth. Having their bad losses becoming a little bit better, maybe some of the wins more convincing, but not necessarily changing table position. Now I can see us, 12th or 11th, maybe, sort of in that bottom end of the chasing pack. And then first few games, we managed to get two Irish teams. Our derby against the Dragons, so that's at least one win this week. And we kick off. We kick off at home to the Lions, which could be an interesting one, depending on how they travel first thing. Anyone want to voice opinions on how terrible they think Cardiff are this season? Hattie's wincing.
Do you know what? I feel like I said it last week about the Ospreys, just like I have no idea how it's going to go. And Cardiff, I was like, they'll probably be fine. Like, they'll probably be fine. And then today happened, and now I'm like, anything could happen. You could either flop and be like right in the dregs, or if you get a new coach in relatively early and it pays off, then you could surprise everyone. But it's just not good, is it? It's just not good.
Personally, I think they're going to struggle a little bit now.
Yeah.
The El Jefe has left. He's gone to the Union. I think, and more than anything else, I think everyone would say that he was really well liked. Everyone liked him. All the players liked him. Now, the uncertainty down there now, I know they'll try and keep things on the straight and narrow. Like I said, my personal opinion is they may try and sort of promote from within and then replenish one of the assistant coaches' jobs. But something else, I suppose, to think about is that Mason Grady's already been lost to injury. A rotator cuff, not rotator cuff, AC joint problem, I believe. So he's
had surgery. He's due back after the autumn. Yeah, so that's one thing I didn't bring up was some of the injuries. So we're really light at 13 with both Mason Grady and Elijah Evans from the academy lads down. So we're looking at Harry Millard and then another academy lad in Oshin Darwin Lewis. I've got a very sneaky suspicion my least favourite thing in the world of Josh Adams 13 maybe making an appearance.
Yeah.
It may have to. And I think
also James Botham's injured. I said, and was it Theo Cabango and Ewan Stevens are yet to make any predictions, and a lot of these players they're looking at either the end of this first block or not until after the internationals. So I think that's going to give us a really hard start.
Yeah, so when you think about the sort of injuries that you've already got, the playing personnel unavailable, the fact that the head coach is gone, the whole uncertainty around everything else that's taking place and going on, it just, I hope I'm wrong because I'd like to see 4 strong regions or 4 pro teams this year. But it just seems that Cardiff seem to be swimming against the tide already. And I think this weekend, if you can't pick up a win against the Lions, that are traditionally not the strongest South African team, plus whatever, sort of world stars they have got will be in and around the South African squad for the remainder of the Rugby Championship. And I don't think there's that many of them. I really think Cardiff are going to struggle this year. And that's not being, this is a Gwent versus Cardiff thing or anything. It's like you've been set up to fail. And I'm almost disappointed because when, the Dragons get a monkey off their back and beat Cardiff, it'll just be these excuses now that, we haven't got a head coach and all these injuries and so on and so forth. But, we just take it anyway.
This way. How bad are you all going to look if you still lose to Cardiff and we're this much of a shambles?
Yeah, there is that.
You normally have plenty to say.
I start with a positive. I thought it was a really good idea for all our clubs. Is that Leinster had a free? You could watch it on the YouTube, I think it was, which I thought was a really
you had
nice.
To sign up to Leinster TV.
Yeah, but it didn't cost anything. I thought it was a really nice idea. And what was interesting is the commentators were quite shocked, really. I think that how that it wasn't the routine Leinster win, even with the C team, and how well Cardiff had played in that game and thoroughly deserved it. I didn't watch it all, but I saw bits of it. So, well, hats off to Cardiff for that performance. I think you've added some depth in the front five forwards. They're not stardust, but they'll do a job. So I don't think any worse off in that respect this season. But you did rely very heavily on Teddy Williams, who I think is a superb, really promising player, but a 35-year-old Josh McNally. So my question is, can McNally, a year older, play the 20-odd games this season? If the worst...
I don't think so, but I think, again, that's why we signed George Knott.
Yeah.
Because I'd say George Knott's probably a better backup for McNally than Seb Davis was. Also, he's going to be on less. You'd imagine he's probably going to be on a bit cheaper as well. So I think with some of these second, third, fourth choice players, we've picked players who maybe necessarily don't command as high a wage.
Okay.
I mean, Tim Bash and Thomas Young is that's probably more of a younger player, but also going for, again, someone who's a bit more physical, as long as we can rein in some of his more exuberant tendencies, because we already have Alex Mann for that.
I thought McNally had a very good season. So are you going to get a bit of drop-off in performance, even with George Knott, who you rate very highly?
But I mean, probably, the thing is, I don't know, because he missed most of last season with concussions and things. So I'm hoping it's gonna be fine. But
my only
concern until we see it until the ball's kicked.
My concern for Cardiff in the second row would be that there's only four recognised second rows in the squad, and one of them is young Tom Cottle, who's 18 or 19 years of age. So you've got McNally, Thornton, Knott, and Cottle, is my understanding, as being the.
And then you've got Ben Donnell then as Tony can switch, and Alan Lawrence will push in. I imagine they'll probably. I think any injuries. I think we're one or two injuries away from a load of loan signings anyway.
Oh, you got Teddy Williams in there as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you'd have Teddy Williams
when he's not away with Wales or on Wales rest, because I think he's going to be. I think he's proved in Japan that he's worth being a more permanent fixture in that squad.
And this could be Cardiff's problem this year, with perceived sort of lack of depth in some positions within the squad. As soon as you take a few of the Stardust players out, you're thinking, back row wise, you're probably expecting the likes of Falatau, Botham, potentially Basham, Mann, potentially all being in and around the Wales squad. That's going to leave you real thin on the ground as well. My
criticism of Cardiff about succession planning is around the 13 position. They knew they couldn't carry on forever. That was evident in September 24 when you had a CEO and a committee. You signed two wingers, the year before Hammer Webb and then Ewan Stevens. Surely that was the time to go out and get a decent Polynesian 13. Sod's Law.
Isn't there?
Pardon?
There's a problem with signing a non-Welsh qualified 13.
Well, you should have gone out.
It's one of those things. Like this, I mean, I know I'm going to sound like a typical Cardiff fan blaming everyone else, but we tried signing these, we couldn't. And the succession plan was for Mason Grady to become our 13. Turns out though he's made of glass.
Yeah,
so that's
that could have been seen coming though.
Yeah, probably. But then again, I'm not in charge of recruitment.
No,
this is something that a lot of Cardiff fans have complained about. We want.
I've heard Cardiff fans complain about it. So why hasn't anybody listened? Why hasn't anybody done anything about it?
I'm with Nick on this one. I think there has to be some accountability, doesn't there? And the reality is as well, even if you are succession planning for another 13, you think, it's going to be Mason Grady. The reality is, if he at his age and his sort of physical stature and his athletic capabilities, if he does hit his straps, he's going away with Wales. So you want people that are in there able to back up week in, week out. And I suppose that's the difference, really, when you look at the Dragons recruitment. The two lads in the back line that have signed from, one from Zebra and one from
Pacifica.
Yeah. Those guys are not going away with Wales in the autumn internationals or the Six Nations, so they're going to be available throughout that window. So yeah, I think I'm with Nick on this when the planning again has been wanting a little bit.
I think they'll still play some nice rugby. I think they'll win quite a few home games. but I don't see them coming anywhere near the top 8.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Well, let's put numbers on the line. I said I think I've already said I think we'll probably finish 12th this year. Nick, do you want to put a number down where you think Cardiffs are going to be?
13th.
Cool. Dan.
14th and a half, maybe 15th. Sorry, I think it's that. I think the loss of the coach at this time in the season, it is borderline catastrophic. I really, really do.
Yeah, there is
Maybe
Hattie.
it'll galvanize everyone. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but 14th.
I hadn't taken into consideration the amount of injuries you've already got before the season started. So I'm gonna have to say like 14th. I think you could maybe have, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in the first couple of games you sort of rally, potentially. And then I think there'll just be a nosedive.
Yeah, that sounds very typical. When anything happens to Cardiff, it's usually a good rally, and then it tails off towards the end anyway. Right, so that's Cardiff thoroughly kicked into the dirt. So shall we move on to the team that finished best despite not winning the Welsh Shield last season in the Scarlets?
Nice little dig there, Harley. Thank you. So I think generally, some people may disagree with me. I think the Scarlets were going in with quite a lot of continuity from last year. I don't think, especially in comparison to some of the other regions, we haven't lost anybody too major. We don't have any coaching changes, etc., etc. So players out, we've got 10 out, but the big ones being Jan Lloyd, obviously, to Cardiff, Alex Craig up to Glasgow, Sam Wainwright to Cardiff. The one that absolutely broke my heart is Ver Fafita. He's like the one person on our list of people that have gone that I'm actually genuinely quite upset about, and the person that I'm going to miss the most. But he's going to be making money in France, so I don't blame him. And then Steph Evans has gone down to Carmarthen Quins, which a little bit sad, but is what it is. And then coming in, the big news today, Kirby Myhill's come in as a hooker on loan from Miami Sharks, which is a team which no longer exists. So not quite sure how that works. But there we go. And then the big news, I would say, would be Joe Hawkins coming in from Exeter Chiefs, and he's been listed as a fly half / centre, whereas he's only, I think, at Chiefs, he was only really seen as a centre in the 2.5 games he did play when he was out there. And I know all his caps for Wales have been as a centre as well. But he did play fly half in our warm-up game for about 50 minutes. So, and then Jake Ball, bit of a legend, one of my favourite players from 2018, 2019, has come back as well after spending a couple of years out in Japan, etc. So he's probably past it, a little bit old. I don't see him getting any Wales caps or anything, but it does help shore up our second row where we're a bit light as well. And then we've had one promotion from the academy, which is Sam O'Connor, who's a loose head, and under 20s, I believe, as well. In terms of the squad generally, we're looking quite light in the second row. We're also looking very light at hooker. So I actually sent a message earlier to Hugh saying, are we just foregoing lineouts for this season? They just won't be happening because we've got 3 hookers and 4 second rows, and that's it. And then also Ryan Elias, one of our hookers, and then Eddie James, centre, are out with injury, and they won't be back, I believe, until after the internationals, which is a bit of a shame. And then the major news coming out of the Scarlets is that the House of Luxury investment deal, which made the rounds a couple of weeks ago. I think the one thing I would say that I've seen kind of already is that our social media has changed quite a lot. I think all of the Welsh region, the social media has been quite, I'm going to say old-fashioned, which is social media, so it sounds a little bit silly, but there was nothing really exciting going on, I think, with any of the regions. They weren't really keeping up with trends, which made sense because budgets were tight, and one of the first things you're going to drop is social media. I think the Ospreys probably had the most recognisable with the graphics. But something they've been really big on in this preseason has been TikTok and doing viral trends and things like that. and some of them have started to go viral, and it's a really small thing, but it will hopefully lead to bums on seats, people watching games, etc. And I do wonder if House of Luxury, potentially it's money from them has gone towards a new social media person. Not quite sure on that, but that's probably the one thing that I've noticed since they've come in. And then obviously the chief experience officer, Simon Kozlowski, is pretty something on Twitter. So if you ever want a bit of entertainment in your afternoon,
Should we go with
It's interesting. It's interesting. Let's reading his tweets.
yeah. I had a lovely conversation with him about a month ago, where he didn't seem to know who Brython Thunder was, so that was fun. I think they've come in and they've been subjected to something they weren't expecting. I think they were maybe expecting it. Maybe and I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but I think they thought it was going to be like Welcome to Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds, and it was like, and it's been like the complete opposite because all they're getting is like Scarlets fans and even like non-Scarlets fans being really angry with them and taking the mick out of them. But yeah, the other interesting thing really with that is that Dan Bigg is involved for some reason, which is something. There we go. And then pre-season results. I know a lot of people have said stuff about it online. It hasn't been great for us, but I would say traditionally the Scarlets are not a pre-season team anyway. I think it's more about getting people to have a run around rather than getting necessarily good results. So we did 40 minutes against Rovers, 40 minutes against Quins. It was a win against Rovers, loss to the Quins. And then 28-33 loss to the Dragons. Which, losing to the Dragons always hurts. But again, I'm not too worried. It's only pre-season. Like last year, our line out in pre-season was honestly the worst thing you would have ever seen. And then we ended up finishing with one of the best lineouts in URC. So again, not too concerned about that. I think we've potentially got a good start. It's a home game to Munster, which I think could be interesting. It could set the tone for the season, especially with Munster kind of being in a bit of a disarray with losing quite a lot of players, senior players, that is. So yeah, if we can start well there, I think it'll be a good start to the season.
See, for me, I think that very forfeited loss is going to be quite big because when you think about why was your line out so good,
Good.
it was basically a mix between Tame Plumtree and Vi Fafita. When you needed a game-changing moment, it was either Tame Plumtree or Vi Fafita. And if Tame Plumtree's going to be away with Wales,
yeah, it basically leads like Sam Lousy on his own, and Lousy and Fafita like as a duo is just beautiful to watch. So only having Lousy left, and obviously we lost to Pelotti last year as well. So that little squad, that little band of brothers is gone, which is very sad.
Turks.
Tongan Turks. It's very, very sad. But yeah, I'm happy for him because he's probably getting way more money than he'd ever get playing for any Welsh region. But very sad that I don't get to watch him play for the Scarlets anymore.
I think. Sorry, Harley, go on.
It's one thing I was going to ask because and probably go back to Nick as well. How do you guys feel about having your South Africa tour so early on? So obviously Nick Ospreys are round 1 and 2. Scarlets are 4 and 5, which I believe are the last 2 rounds before the break. So there's a good chance that any of your Wales internationals might not be allowed to travel because that round 5 would normally be a rest week or a week in camp.
I know for us, like we don't always send them anyway, so it's not too much of a concern for me. I'm glad it's out the way. I mean, it's the Lions and the Sharks, and it's like, well, if we come away with 1 win, I don't know. I think it'll be a really weird couple of games. But I feel like traveling to South Africa is always weird. Because it's always very quiet in the stadiums, and I feel like last year, I can't remember who it was, it might have been the Lions, where there are actually more Scarlets fans than there were Lions fans in the stadium. So I'm glad it's out of the way, basically. And they're kind of weird, almost write-off games for us, I think. But
I
I'd be
went
happy if we got a win.
I went for to the Lions game against the Ospreys in Johannesburg. So for the Ospreys, we were right at home. There was nobody there.
Yeah. Honestly, like you could hear like Scarlets fans singing, and there was literally maybe like three Lions fans there.
I just have to add, it is in the roughest area of a very rough city.
Yeah, we've heard that from some South African fans as well. But
Yeah.
I think again some of the losses compared to the recruitment from a Scarlets perspective are borderline disastrous, really. We met Fafita's probably the standout.
it's the big one.
Um, Alex Craig, though, Warrior in the second row, 28 years of age, he's being replaced with Jake Ball, who's been playing out in Japan 34, 35 years of age. So
And retired the year before. He's had a whole year out.
had a whole year out. Now, I hope he comes back and does a world of good because if he's anything like he was previously, he'll end up in the Wales squad. Bit of an enforcer, put his tackles in and make a gain line. So good on him. But to lose Fafita, Alex Craig, I think losing Ewan Lloyd and Charlie Titcombe was released as well and has ended up going to Leicester. Leaves the number 10 options at the moment. Sam Costello, who's obviously going to go with Wales. And then the backup is Joe Hawkins. But if Joe Hawkins starts playing well at 12, he's going to go with Wales as well. Leaves you with what? Like young Steph Jack Jones from the Osprey, from the academy. Again, I can't fathom the succession planning here. It baffles me. I wouldn't have let Tui Pilotu go either.
No.
He
No,
went, he went, he's the guy's only 23 years of age. He has something that, genetically we don't have a lot of in Wales, and that's big men. He went to Saracens, it didn't quite on loan went there. Now he's out playing for Pau, I believe, out in France. And
and he's playing first team
playing
rugby out in
playing
Po.
first team rugby, so I I don't know, there's another team that I worry about because last season I felt that the Scarlets got away with it a little bit in terms of injuries. Personally, Fafita played plenty of rugby, Sam Lousy played plenty of rugby, all the key players played lots of rugby for the Scarlets. I don't think you're going to be as lucky uh, this season as compared to last season. And I just think again that the depth chart is not quite there, especially in those certain positions. I hope I'm wrong because ultimately we won plenty of strong teams, but I think those losses in terms of personnel are a little bit too much to make up for. Maybe I'm wrong. The Kirby Myhill thing coming at hooker, a little bit underwhelming for me. He's 33 years of age, has been playing out in the MLR, which is no great shakes, is it? Let's be honest.
I
And
don't think he
and
had that much game time for them either.
yeah, and the club's now
Things Rob
defunct, so
Ends.
exactly. I don't know. I'm on the fence with the Scars because if they can put their best 15 or 23 out week in, week out, as they did most of last season with a little bit of rotation, then they'll do okay. But I think you're going to find it hard to fill that 8 jersey week in, week out with someone who does the same level of work, same gain line carries, same destructive tackling, same turnover capacity, same line out ability as Fafita, and you're going to miss that grunt in the boiler house from Alex Craig as well. So, and I know Johan Lloyd hasn't necessarily been a favourite down there with a certain form presenter of the rap, particularly, but um, it would have filled a gap this year, wouldn't it? On a
Yeah,
on a number of occasions. So
I think with Lloyd and with Tuipulotu, the problem is that because there were clear choices ahead of them, they didn't want to sit kind of and wait. But actually, looking ahead, I think especially with Tuipulotu now, like I think we probably would have known that Fafita was going. You know, he absolute standout, not just for Scarlets, but I think he was one of those players like in the URC generally people looked at and kind of went like, oh, Well, actually, he's very good. So I don't think it's surprising that he's gone to France. I think we would have known that. So to let Tuipulotu go, although he's a very, very different player, I don't think he's as dynamic. I think he still would have been playing at least second fiddle to say Tame Plumtree when he was available. It is a big loss looking back. Lloyd, I'm not too fussed about. I think he was kind of doing too much and, playing 10 and 15, but not being a first choice for either. And also quite a different player to Costello. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know if he fitted in with our plan necessarily.
What's strange about the Lloyd removal, though, or the moving on to Cardiff, is you've got rid of last year's URC top point scorer, was my understanding. He kicked his kick succession rate was much higher than anybody else. My understanding is, I mean, I stand to be corrected on this, folks, but he was leading point scorer in the league, is my understanding.
But the thing was, his kicking is so mercurial. Like sometimes it's dead on, other times it is absolutely shocking, and there is no in between.
But but again, I suppose my point being is for him to be top point scorer in the league. I don't know why anyone would want to let that go,
Was he
knowing
top point scorer?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
126 points he scored last season.
But does that say more about the fact that he was getting more regular game time than somebody else, like Leinster, who change up their 10 quite often?
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's probably more sign of Scarlets in the first half of last season went for the poles an awful lot. He did go for the sticks a lot, but he was really good. And you got to remember is Johan Lloyd was your 10 for quite a lot of that season because Sam Casello was injured. So for all your frustrations about him, he's a big part in why you got where you did.
Yeah. I see your point. I think I think it's a bit like 10 for Wales though, isn't it? Like if they're on, everybody's supported, and if they're off, everybody goes off them very quickly. And I think that's kind of how generally Scarlets fans are with Lloyd. And personally, he was just not my
The big
preferred.
thing for me as well, which I think is not going to help now with the Cardiff situation, is I think Johan Lloyd desperately needs a coach who's played 10 to sort of help him through that, which I thought with him going over to Jockey, that would have helped. I mean, maybe having Sheedy back, he might, he's a bit older, a bit wiser. But like Dwayne Peel was a 9. And I think you saw that. I don't think, and I think it was quite similar with Sam Casello, is I don't think his game's evolved really from where he went from when he was at Leicester. And when he took over his Leicester, he sort of had to sort of force on anything in bits he's picked up along the way. And it's something me and Hugh have been discussing like since Peel came in, is that it looks like neither 10 was developing. I think Charlie Titcombe as well. You can see the talent there, but you don't necessarily see anything getting honed. Sort of saying, do this. And but then they don't have a Stephen Myler either, type, a really senior head who can guide the players.
I think
that's not
with our backline generally, like they're all quite young. And so there is nobody really steering the ship, or coming in with any experience. Just like the one thing that I do dislike, and I also feel potentially with Jake Ball coming back, I feel like that's why he's come in for the forwards. A lot of our forwards are, even like Ryan Elias, I think he's like my age, but is obviously in and out quite a lot. But there's not a lot of like.
I think Elias is in his 30s now.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I'm 28.
I think he's a bit closer. I think he's close. I think he's closer to me than you.
Yeah.
Ryan Elias is 30.
Yeah. I feel like there just needed to be like somebody with a bit of ballast coming into that second row in terms of like leadership, and steering the head. I think that's potentially why Jake Ball's come in. But I'd like to see somebody in the backs doing the same. We just don't have. Although I wonder what Dan Bigger's going to do.
Well, I think he said he's not actually that involved with that side of things, but he just happens to be involved in the same company or investment engine or whatever.
Well, I'd like him to get more involved, please. This is my message to Dan Bigger.
Just to add, I agree everything's been said. I think Fifita for me had a little bit of gold dust about him. I'm surprised more hasn't been made of him leaving. I'm glad we've had that conversation tonight. I think Craig, as Dan's alluded to, is a real workhorse, and that he'll be missed. But the other things I'd add is that I believe Henry Thomas, who was a stalwart for them last year, has had an operation. He's soon to be 34. Is he going to be fit and ready for Block 1? I don't know. And Manus van der Meer, who was absolutely superb and so good. He's now in the Springbok setup and coming off the bench for them, and that takes some doing. But he's hardly going to be available for Block 1, I wouldn't think, because you still got the
lucky
the
soon
rugby
before
challenge-
Christmas. I think,
Exactly.
because
And then you got the November internationals. When is he going to have a break? He'll play 12 months of rugby. So
Yeah, and I think that adds as well to our big hooker problem. Like this morning when I was looking before Kirby was announced, we didn't have a senior hooker.
No.
We were just looking at the academy, and we do have very good academy
yeah.
hookers, but that's not something you want to rely on until December.
No. Or coming off the bench for the last 10, 15 minutes is okay if you've got a seasoned hooker who's done 60, 70 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a bit of one Wales. I think the Ospreys should lend you one of their 27 million hookers.
Yeah.
No
It may
chance.
end up being that way if they need a loan. Or,
Yeah.
players going out on loan, it may end up being that way. But someone mentioned Stephen Milett earlier, and it sort of got me thinking then a little bit. Like you look at the Scarlets fly half setup for the last for the last couple of seasons. It's been Costello, Johan Lloyd, and Titcombe as the backup. All of those currently, as I'm looking here on the internet in front of me, are all 24 and under. So the fly half situation in reality at the Scarlets has been run by players of some real inexperience. And I don't know why they think that bringing in Joe Hawkins, who's a 12 probably by trade and played all his pro rugby at trade, is then going to be the answer to it.
And again, he's still really young. He's
Still
like
really young. He's 23, 24 years of age again. So, go out and there are plenty of, not only one journeyman fly halves knocking around in the league, but there will be plenty of players of experience that are sort of 30, 31 years of age coming towards the end of their playing career that are able to ultimately direct the ship, because that's where you want some leadership, some direction, someone with the ability for, Reece Patchell was knocking around for a long period of time. I know he's retired from playing now and he's kicking coach down at the Dragons, but did they not have a conversation with someone of that experience?
or bringing somebody in, like for example with Patchell, with him saying like, actually I'm retiring now. Bring him in as sort of like a player coach option.
Exactly. There was options there. I'd be amazed if he didn't have another 6 or 9 months in Patch to be able to go down and play. And
Even
it
if
would
it's
just
bench option to kind of steady the ship or something. Like,
yeah, you start Costello, you bring Patch
yeah,
off the bench to see the game home. There's no drop off in quality. If you're playing in a fixture that you need a little bit more stability and a little bit more game steering, you start him, and you don't have to worry about what's coming into the team when the boys are on Welsh duty. So again, we go on about succession planning and planning all the time. We've banged on about it from the union in terms of the PRA and all this consultancy stuff and everything else they got going on. It just seems that it's way off to me in a number of places. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a little bit negative on it all, but it just seems no one's planned ahead. But then maybe being in the situation that we're currently in is really difficult to plan ahead because who's going on? I'm going to come to, maybe this is a reflection of the environment we're in terms of rugby within this country. Maybe it's a direct reflection of that.
Remember 2 or 3 seasons ago, the WRU basically took a third off of the playing budget off some of the, it was Scarlets was almost halved when we all got cut down. And we basically, instead of doing what the Premiership did when they lowered the salary cap, saying we're going to give you 2 seasons to get your squads under, they just went, They sort of came up in April and went, oh, by the way, you've got to shave 2 million off. Good luck with that. And the players that were going were the third choice guys and those more experienced heads who were commanding a little bit of salary, but maybe weren't playing full seasons. I mean, one player the Scarlets should have really is Johnny Williams. He's been around the block enough. But is he really is he really, is that kind of player he is? I don't know. And then you're looking at Ewan Nichols and you're like, is who again's been a while, he's captain, he has captained the side, but is he a first choice player? Is he someone is he someone who's in the 23 when everything goes wrong?
For me, he's number 23 on the team sheet, and he's coming on if we need him. But I wouldn't necessarily say that he's anywhere close to our first choice, especially when our backline looks the way it does at the moment.
It's a real difficult situation for Welsh Rugby. I think we're a sort of we're a victim of the current situation. I'm just having a quick flick through some of the squad depth charts in like Pro D2 in France. Brive got 6 fly halves in the squad, including a couple of academy boys, Stuart Holding, Hugo Verdú, and Carwyn Bosch. The South African lad now, and they're all 28 to 32. The level of experience and game management, and just there's no. It's like once you pass your driving test, and there's no replacement for actually going out and physically driving the car. It's the same, being a rugby player and being on. There's no substitute for game time and being on there. And yeah, I just think we're kind of being set up to fail at the moment. If you're Sam Davis, for example, would you want to come back to Wales, even though you're playing in Pro D2? No, I'd snap him up at the Dragons, no problem. There's a fly half, definitely a fly half vacancy going down at the Scarlets. But would you want to come back?
And not only that, like you say, oh, do you want to come back with the possibility that next year you might not have a job? But the Pro Day is probably paying more than the Welsh regions are.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
So why would you want to? And also to have to deal with Welsh rugby media, which is not fun to deal with anyway.
Yeah, and there's that as well.
Plus, you get to live in like really nice parts of France
with cheap wine,
have, beautiful cheeses and wine.
Yeah.
I like a Caerphilly myself. You can keep your French stuff. That's the woke nonsense that is, Harley. Give me a Caerphilly and a Snowdon any day of the
week. What can I say? I am part of the woke generation. I like my cheese from all around the world, and I like to experience, especially when I go to Tory Fest or farm shows, as they're actually called.
I'm lactose intolerant.
I think before this tangent goes too far, I think we'll put a pin in this. Let's get some predictions. Hattie, you are our Turk. Where do you think they're going to come this season? And if you want to talk about Champions Cup, of course, that's something we forgot. Scarlets are in the Champions Cup.
Oh yeah, we're going to.
I think by that face, Hattie forgot that.
Do you know what? I thought about it the other day, and I was like, "Oh God."
What trips are in the Champions Cup group?
Northampton
and Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Northampton
and Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Nice wine.
I might be going to the Northampton game because it's obviously up the road from me. But I don't look forward to any of it.
It's going to put more stress on the squad again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Hattie.
It's just, going up against any French team in either comp is never fun. But going up against Bordeaux is going to be horrendous, quite frankly.
And away from home as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
These fixtures as well, they're highly problematic because if you start struggling in the league, for example, you pick up a couple of injuries or your squad depth, as we know, you then go, right, we're going to Bordeaux away.
Exactly.
We send the bin juice. So they're going to send the bin juice over to Bordeaux, for example, because they don't want to risk all the first team boys. You end up getting battered by 80 and getting absolutely pumped. It's not good for morale.
No.
So your season could spiral out of control very quickly if you get pumped at both Northampton and Bordeaux. What are the home fixtures?
They are Bristol Bears and Pow. So it's a homecoming for Carwyn.
Oh, nice and two nice easy fixtures.
Yeah.
You might depend on how because you've got Pow last. If they're basically out of it anyway,
Might pick up a win then.
you might get a shot and push yourself into Challenge Cup. And then, that's actually something that's probably a little bit more tape. I think Challenge Cup for most teams actually is probably the best, because unless you are willing to spend, especially with the way they've got the squad set up. But I will go into I'll do my 20 to 30 minutes head talk on what I think we should do for the formerly European rugby
Again,
another time.
Again, though, right? This has to be like the Scarlets here has to be a victim of the current climate, because they've lost arguably two out of their best 4 or 5 forwards gone. They've got Champions Cup rugby,
Yeah,
and still can't attract the players. You still can't bring them in.
Or don't even have the financial
Or
scope.
don't even have the finances to do it. You're like, this is impossible, absolutely impossible, and you're expected to go and compete out in Bordeaux next season, who got a playing budget, and I know it's different for people come up in the comments and all the rest of it. They're going to have
It
a playing
doesn't
budget
compare.
like
Salary cap's
15
10
million
million
quid.
euros. So
10 million.
10 million
Yeah,
euros
and that-
is the salary cap in top 14, and that doesn't include their academy allowance.
And it doesn't
Exactly.
include, they get an extra allowance for players that go away on national duty as well. On French duty.
So by the time you're all said
they'll
and
get
done,
English
extra.
Premiership.
Yeah.
so by the time you're all said and done, you're talking sort of 12 to 15 million quid then, not 10 million. And even if it
Not
was
4.5.
10 million, yeah, it's more than double the Scarlets. How do you cope with that? I don't know. You put your tin hat on when you go to Bordeaux, because it's going to be a rough old ride.
Bordeaux's going to be pretty rough. Northampton, I think, is going to be pretty bad. I think it's not a fun stadium to go to if you're in away opposition, in my opinion.
Just looking at the squad that Bordeaux have got: Hano, BLBRE, Jalibé, Maxime Luku.
Just rub the salt in the wound, Dan.
I said we can go into this depression when we get closer to Champions Cup rugby. I think just to save Hattie's soul.
I'm here. I'm all for it.
For now, shall we just get these predictions out of the way? We'll wrap up, and then tomorrow night we'll do our URC round 1 preview. So Hattie, where do you think you can come in the league? How do you think you can do in the Champions/Challenge Cups?
We are coming bottom of the group in the cup. In Europe, I will be frankly elated if we win a single game. I'm not expecting a single thing from that. I'm hoping we come like 7th or 8th. I think the thing is, like, we're obviously concentrating on Welsh Rugby and how our regions are doing. I would say, like, there's some discontent in other places, especially if you look over to Ireland. I think that some of their provinces could really drop, and it could benefit the Welsh regions. So I'm hoping 7th, 8th.
Sounds good, Nick. As you are the biggest Scarlets fan on the pod,
Oh,
how do you think
he's going to say we're coming bottom?
No, I'm not. No, I try and be objective. I think they have still got very good backs if they can win the ball. And probably the best group of backs of any of the 4. But as I say, given the concerns I've got about the changes and the losses up front, I'm going to go for 12th.
Yeah.
And do you think they could do anything in Europe?
No, I think I totally agree with. I think it's almost coming in the top 8. I think we were lucky the year we came 8th. For whatever reason, I can't remember, if the Sharks won the Challenge Cup, didn't they? So we didn't have to go into it. I think it was a blessing in disguise. At least in the Challenge Cup, you can mix and match teams for a couple of those games and sort of get away with it. So no, I think they'll do really well to maybe pick up a win in one of the home games. So
That-
yeah, knocked out first time.
Okay, so I think, am I allowed to pick 12th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
think.
I don't think you've picked anyone at 12th yet.
Well, I know Nick just picked them at 12th, but I just looking at the table in front of me now. I think 12th is a fair reflection, and I think my opinion on that is, and the reasoning behind it is because the Challenge Cup is not the Challenge Cup. The Champions Cup is going to be too much. It's going to take too much out of them, and as a result, they're going to pick up a couple of injuries this year. Squad depth's going to be an issue, so they're going to come 12th, and they're going to exit the Challenge Cup at the bottom of the pool. Sorry.
I'm
just-
gonna be the positive one. I'm gonna be the
I was
Lee
going
of
to
the
say, I was
situation.
nice about the Dragons.
I know, I'm sorry. It's just it wasn't until you reminded me about the Challenge Cup, that's because the Dragons, the Champions Cup, that what a task that is, even the home fixtures. And the physicality, the collisions, everything that's involved, the pace of that rugby for a squad of the size of any Welsh region, really, I think is a step too far. And it'll be detrimental to the league position. That's, if you keep everyone fit, and not play in that competition, then yeah, you'd have a shot at being further up the league like we were. But losing Fafita and Craig going into that competition as well. Sorry, that's just the harsh reality of where I think it's going to end up.
As I said, I'm going to be the Lee of the situation. I'm going to be actually quite positive. I mean, initially I was thinking Scarlets 6th, but with some of those injuries, particularly Eddie James, who I thought was very good last season. I think they're going to have a very bad first half of the season and do the Scarlets thing of really iffy and then sort of come out of nowhere towards the end. I think you are going to win. I think either Power or Bristol will slip up against Scarlets because Bristol can be incredible. As much as I love my Bears and I will die for these Bears, I just know
They are a bit of a
flaky and
banana skin.
They've got a lack of performance in them. And Pat, I said, but it'll be one of the last. Also, round 3, you're hosting Pow. I could see them maybe not bothering and been just focusing on top 14, considering where they tend to finish, they can end up drifting towards the lower end. So I could see you. I don't think you're going to make the round of 16 Champions Cup, but I think you might drop down for the Challenge Cup, and I think you could make the quarters there because I think Scarlets are good enough to beat most Challenge Cup teams on their day. Yeah, and I think they're going to pick up. I think they're probably going to win a few more games, particularly against the other regions that they should have. I don't see them getting absolutely humiliated by the Ospreys again. Yeah. Even if it is in the mud pit of St. Helens. Not St. Helens, Brewery Field, isn't it? Yeah, you're not going to St. Helens anytime soon. That's all our pre-season previews. Feel free to check on this box that I'm hoping Lee's going to put up, otherwise it'll look like more of a tit than usual for the Ospreys and the Dragons. And we'll see you later this week with our round 1 URC preview. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you Nick, Dan and Hattie for joining me. Goodbye.
Take care.
Hey.